Okay, music fans, welcome back. It is me, Dave, the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. I was perusing blabbermouth.net, kind of a heavy metal sort of site in case you go over there, but occasionally some moderate hard rock or just plain old rock trickles down and you get some interesting news. Today I read an article featuring Jeff Pilson from Foreigner and slash Dokken fame, currently a member of Foreigner, talking about how the band probably won't be creating any new music, or at least not a full album of new music anytime soon. They cited the process that went into making their 2009 album Can't Slow Down. Jeff also talked about logistics and how the band is just basically always touring. Now, this dovetails a little bit with the video I did the other day about Foreigner possibly going down to 0 original members, but it really illustrates a big problem with the music industry. Does anybody here remember that Foreigner had an album in 2009? Anyone? Bueller? Anybody out there? Okay, I did because I follow Foreigner, but a lot of people didn't know they recorded new music. In fact, from what I remember, they had one tune and maybe two tunes get on that fake list of songs that adult contemporary stations pretend to add by old artists but actually never play the music on the air, or maybe they do at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're just not hearing it because you're asleep. This really illustrates the problem that we all have now as far as classic rock fans and fans of old bands, by the way, that produce new music. Now, did I like that album, Can't Slow Down? Yeah, I liked 2 or 3 songs off of it. But those 2 or 3 songs were worth some airplay. There have been plenty of albums in the past that had one really good song on them, and the album maybe didn't get too much play, but that one song did. And in this case, Can't Slow Down, maybe not the greatest Foreigner album of all time, but certainly worthy of some airplay. But programmers today, they don't want to do it. I've got a friend who's running an 80s radio station right now, and he's a good guy, but here's the battle. I suggested maybe some new music on there, handpicked by yours truly, and he shot me down because the idea of an 80s format, 80s only, is more appealing and probably will bring in more listeners, and I get that. So who takes the chance then? Terrestrial radio stations aren't doing it. Internet radio is a good solution to some degree, but not all of us have access. And quite honestly, it's a very niche thing. So if you're listening to an internet radio station, they may play a couple of new songs by, up and coming artists. There are stations like AOR, Then and Now, which is a great radio station to listen to online if you like melodic rock. But there are a few stations that will actually blend the new stuff with the classic stuff. And if I were to run a radio station and start one, that's what I would do. The problem here with Foreigner and Journey and REO Speedwagon came out with an album about 10 or 11 years ago. Find Your Way Home. The thing was just packed with one great song after another. In fact, that's what you ought to do after you finish watching this video. Go look up that album, Find Your Way Home, it's called. It's got a clock on the cover or a watch. It's REO Speedwagon, and there's really not a bad song on it. I know Jim Peterick was on that album as far as a writer, and the production I thought was vintage REO from their heyday. But nobody played it. I think 1 or 2 stations, again, pretended to add and play songs from it, and this was 10 years ago, and they were doing this stuff. So it's even worse now, and these bands are getting older and older, and I think there's going to be a time where it's just not profitable for a band like Foreigner to do an album. That's John Cain's argument in Journey. I think with Journey you can make an exception because I think there's a big enough fan base that would love to hear some new music. But for the most part, these bands, even the Eagles, the reconstituted Eagles with Deacon Fry, you think they would run in the studio and throw a couple of songs together before they embark on this huge tour that they're doing. But there's nothing. There's nothing coming from them. They got Vince Gill, they got Deacon, and no music coming this way. So, as a fan of classic rock and the sounds of the past, there are bands that are making this kind of music. There are old bands that are making new music that is completely under the radar. And unless you're just scouring the internet daily or on their website and you're getting notifications constantly, you're probably going to miss the fact that Foreigner had an album back in 2009 and maybe a new track. They do have a brand new album coming out with an orchestra recorded over in Europe, and I guarantee you it probably sounds great, but it's going to feature all old music. It's just going to feature a new way to hear that old music. So that's good for us fans, but if you're a true fan of just music in general and you want something new in your ears, you're probably not going to hear much from your favorite classic bands. And if you do, you're probably not going to know about it until way after the fact. All right, so that's my video. Foreigner, Jeff Pilson saying, yeah, new music, probably not. Or if we do, probably one or two songs when we get around to it. So that's my video. I'll be back with more real music talk in real time for real people just like you and just like me. We'll do it real soon.